Rise, my apprentice.
As we know it, in the shadowy depths of Cloud City, Darth Vader extended his hand to Luke Skywalker, offering him not just survival, but power, knowledge, and a place by his side. Luke, battered and broken, faced a choice that would determine the fate of the galaxy. In that moment of unbearable tension, he chose the path of the Jedi, denying his father and plunging into the unknown, preferring the uncertainty of the abyss to the darkness of tyranny. But what if, in that crucial heartbeat, Luke had taken his father's hand, accepting the dark embrace of the Sith? Luke wanted to live a life of good with his father, and this was his motive for joining him, even though his father was still committed to the dark side. Luke believed that maybe he could turn him while working closely with him. He thought he could resist the dark side, confident in the strength of his will and the purity of his intentions. As he clasped his father's hand, a surge of dark energy coursed through him, mingling with his own burgeoning power. Vader sensed his son's conflict, but saw potential, a chance to mold him into a powerful ally. They left Cloud City together to begin his training in secret until he was ready to confront Palpatine. Luke would often ask Vader about his mother, hoping to reach the humanity buried beneath the Sith Lord's dark exterior. Each mention of Padme only caused Vader to shut down and become angry. In these fits of rage, Vader channeled his anger into brutal training sessions, teaching Luke the power and ways of the dark side. The more Luke resisted, the harsher Vader's methods became, using pain and fear as tools to bend his son's will. Despite the darkness surrounding him, Luke remained resilient. His defiance was fueled by the memories of his friends, the lessons of Yoda and Obi-Wan, and the hope that he could still save his father. He refused to embrace the dark side fully, using only what he needed to survive and grow stronger. Vader, who would typically dispose of a failed apprentice without hesitation, was torn. This was his son, his last connection to his former life as Anakin Skywalker. Vader's training was relentless and unforgiving. He pushed Luke to his limits, forcing him to confront his deepest fears and darkest desires. Luke's strength grew under this harsh tutelage, his skills in combat and the Force becoming formidable. Yet, every time he used the dark side, even in small measures, a part of him felt the seductive pull of its power. He was a balloon waiting to pop, the pressure of the dark side threatening to consume him. In moments of solitude, Luke meditated, seeking balance within himself. He clung to the light, drawing strength from the love he had for his friends and the thought of his mother, whom he never knew but felt connected to deeply. He believed that if he could hold on to the light, he could find a way to save his father. Vader, however, saw Luke's resistance as a challenge. He admired his son's strength, but also saw it as a weakness. He continued to push Luke harder, believing that only by embracing the dark side fully could Luke reach his true potential. The training sessions became battles of will, with Luke striving to maintain his integrity while mastering the skills Vader imparted. As time passed, the line between right and wrong blurred for Luke. He used the dark side's power to achieve goals that seemed just, but each use left a mark on his soul. He felt the corruption creeping in, a constant battle within himself to stay true to his beliefs. Vader watched this transformation with a mixture of pride and apprehension, knowing that the dark side was claiming his son, but also fearing what that meant for their bond. Palpatine discovered Luke's secret training under Vader and decided to confront the pair. Arriving unannounced on the Imperial flagship, the Emperor's presence sent a shiver through the crew. In a dark, cavernous chamber aboard the ship, Palpatine stood before Vader and Luke, his yellow eyes glinting with malice.
So the prodigal son has chosen to learn from the fallen father. Do you truly believe you can stand against me?
Together we can end your reign of terror.
The battle began with a fury, lightsabers clashing, and the Force erupting in powerful waves. Vader and Luke fought with a synchronized intensity, their combined strength pushing Palpatine back. The Emperor, however, was a master of manipulation and power. He sensed the growing bond and power between father and son, and knew he had to act quickly. Feeling outnumbered and possibly outmatched, though he would never admit it, Palpatine used his cunning. With a sudden, powerful burst of Force lightning, he created a blinding explosion, separating Luke from Vader. Luke was thrown across the chamber, crashing into a wall and struggling to regain his footing. Palpatine then turned his full attention to Vader.
You have always been a disappointment, Lord Vader.
he sneered, unleashing a torrent of Force lightning. Vader tried to defend himself, but the Emperor's assault was relentless. In a final brutal move, Palpatine pierced Vader's defenses, plunging his lightsaber through his chest. Luke, witnessing his father's death, was overwhelmed with pain and fury. The bubble of the dark side that had been building within him during his training under Vader finally popped. His power exponentially grew, his rage fueling an unprecedented surge in the Force. The chamber trembled as Luke stood, his eyes ablaze with raw, untamed power. With a roar, Luke attacked Palpatine, his strength and speed far surpassing anything he had previously displayed. For a moment, it seemed as though he could rival the Emperor, but this untapped power was new and unfamiliar. Luke's lack of control and focus became evident as his attacks grew wild and erratic. Palpatine, recognizing the danger but also the opportunity, fought back with calculated precision. He used the Force to exploit Luke's lack of control, deflecting his powerful strikes and sending him crashing to the floor with blasts of lightning. The chamber echoed with the sounds of their clash, each strike resonating with the weight of destiny. Despite his newfound strength, Luke was eventually overpowered. Palpatine subdued him, his cold laughter filling the air as he bound Luke with dark side energy.
You are powerful, young Skywalker, but you lack focus. With time, you will learn, and you will serve me.
Luke, now captive, was taken to a secret location deep within the Empire's stronghold. Palpatine intended to break him, to mold him into a new apprentice who could replace Vader. Luke, held in captivity, was now steeped in the dark side. The desire for revenge against Palpatine for the murder of his father burned within him, consuming his thoughts. He made this desire clear to the Emperor, his hatred and rage palpable. Palpatine, seeing the potential in Luke's fury, decided to nurture this darkness. However, he maintained a cautious distance, aware of Luke's immense power and the threat he posed. Palpatine's training methods were brutal and relentless. He pitted Luke against a series of warriors and Force-sensitive captives, forcing him to fight and kill foe after foe. Each battle pushed Luke further into the dark side, honing his skills and amplifying his power. With every opponent he defeated, Luke's strength grew, and his connection to the dark side deepened. Time passed, and Luke became a formidable Force user, possibly the strongest to ever exist in the galaxy. His mastery of the Force was unparalleled, his combat skills unrivaled. The Emperor watched with a mix of fear and pride, knowing that he had created a weapon of unimaginable power, but also a potential threat to his own rule. Luke, at the peak of his strength, knew he could break out of captivity and possibly march his way to the Emperor. However, his ambitions had grown beyond mere revenge. He wanted the whole Empire. He envisioned himself not just as a usurper, but as a ruler who could reshape the galaxy. To achieve this, he needed allies and resources. From within his captivity, Luke began to subtly win over low-level Imperial officers. He promised them power and positions of influence once he took control of the Empire. His charisma and undeniable strength made him a compelling figure, and many officers, disillusioned with Palpatine's rule, began to listen. Luke's first step was to establish a secret network of loyalists within the Imperial ranks. He communicated through coded messages and covert meetings, using his knowledge of the Force to sense loyalty and deceit. Slowly but surely, he gathered a group of officers who were eager for change and willing to support his cause. To bolster his resources, Luke orchestrated small, strategic heists within the Imperial armory. He used his loyalists to smuggle weapons, armor, and technology into hidden caches. These actions were carefully planned to avoid drawing attention, maintaining the appearance of obedience while quietly amassing the tools of rebellion. With his network of loyalists in place and his strength at its peak, Luke knew the time had come to break out of captivity and make his intentions known. He was no longer content to merely escape. He wanted to send a clear message to the Emperor and the entire galaxy. A new power was rising. On the day of his breakout, Luke's forces within the Imperial stronghold moved into action. Sabotaging the prison's security systems, they created a series of controlled explosions that plunged the facility into chaos. The lights flickered, alarms blared, and in the ensuing pandemonium, Luke made his move. Using the Force, he shattered his cell door, stepping out into the smoke-filled corridors with an aura of unyielding determination. Any guards who attempted to stop him were swiftly dispatched, either by his lightsaber or a powerful Force push that sent them crashing into walls. His followers, strategically placed throughout the facility, cleared cleared his path, neutralizing threats and guiding him towards his ultimate goal. Word of Luke's escape spread rapidly through the stronghold, causing panic among those still loyal to Palpatine. But for those who had pledged their allegiance to Luke, it was a rallying cry. They moved with purpose, securing key locations and ensuring that Luke's path remained unobstructed. As he advanced, Luke made it clear to everyone he encountered he was coming for the Emperor. His presence was a force of nature. Luke would eventually reach the entrance to the Emperor's throne room. The massive doors, usually a symbol of insurmountable power, were nothing more than an obstacle to be overcome. With a gesture, he used the Force to blast them open, striding into the room with an air of inevitability. Palpatine awaited him, seated on his throne, his expression a mixture of anger and amusement.
So you have come at last, young Skywalker. You believe you can defeat me and take my place?
Without another word, Luke lunged at the Emperor, his lightsaber slashing through the air with deadly precision. Palpatine sprang from his throne, his own red lightsaber igniting in response. The two blades collided in a shower of sparks, the sound echoing through the chamber. The duel began with a flurry of attacks and parries, both combatants moving with incredible speed and agility. Palpatine's strikes were calculated and vicious, aimed at exploiting any weakness in Luke's defense. But Luke, fueled by the dark side, countered each blow with equal ferocity, his power growing with every clash. Palpatine unleashed a torrent of force lightning, the blue-white bolts crackling through the air towards Luke. Luke raised his lightsaber, absorbing the energy and channeling it back at the Emperor. The lightning arced around the room, scorching the walls and floor as Palpatine deflected it with a flick of his wrist.
Impressive, but you are still no match for the true power of the dark side.
Luke responded with a powerful force push, sending Palpatine hurtling backwards. The Emperor recovered quickly, landing gracefully and retaliating with a force choke. Luke felt his airway constrict, but he resisted, drawing on his rage and hatred to break free from Palpatine's grip. The duel intensified, the room trembling with the sheer force of their battle. Luke's attacks became more aggressive, his strikes fueled by the dark side's raw power. He spun and slashed, his lightsaber a blur of red light. Palpatine matched him blow for blow, his own dark energy amplifying his strength and speed. Sensing an opening, Luke executed a series of rapid strikes, forcing Palpatine on the defensive. With a swift kick, he knocked the Emperor off balance, following up with a powerful downward slash. Palpatine barely managed to parry, the impact driving him to his knees. Seeing his opportunity, Luke pressed the attack. He unleashed a relentless barrage of strikes, his lightsaber cutting through the air with lethal precision. Palpatine struggled to keep up, his defenses faltering under the onslaught. With a final, decisive blow, Luke disarmed the Emperor, sending his lightsaber skittering across the floor. Palpatine, now vulnerable, attempted to summon his dark power one last time, but Luke was ready. He reached out with the Force, gripping the Emperor and lifting him into the air. Palpatine's eyes widened in shock as he felt his power slipping away. With a surge of dark energy, he hurled Palpatine against the wall, the impact shattering the stone and sending the Emperor crumpling to the ground. Palpatine lay motionless, his body broken and lifeless. Luke deactivated his lightsaber, the room falling silent save for the distant rumble of thunder. He stood over the fallen Emperor, his chest heaving with exertion, his mind a maelstrom of emotions. The doors to the throne room opened once more, and Luke's loyalists flooded in, securing the area and ensuring there were no remaining threats. They looked to their new leader with a mixture of awe and fear, recognizing the power and resolve that had brought him to this moment. After defeating Palpatine, Luke swiftly solidified his power as the new Emperor. His loyal servants, already strategically placed within the Empire's infrastructure, ensured a seamless transition of control. Luke began his rule by issuing decrees to stabilize the galaxy and eradicate any remnants of Palpatine's influence. With initial chaos subdued, Luke reached out to his old friends, hoping to integrate them into his vision for a new order. Leia, Han, and other leaders of the Rebel Alliance agreed to meet, initially relieved to hear of the Emperor's death. However, their relief turned to shock and dismay when Luke revealed he had assumed the Emperor's role. Leia and the others were deeply troubled by Luke's refusal to restore democracy. Realizing the extent of his transformation, they saw the shadow of the dark side warping his sense of justice and fueling his fear of losing control. Despite their concerns, Luke remained resolute, convinced that only his strong hand could maintain order and peace. As word spread of Luke's decision, the Rebel Alliance found itself at odds with the new regime. The war that began to overthrow overthrow a tyrant now continued against a new one. Luke's former friends, now seen as enemies, regrouped to resist his rule. The ensuing conflict was brutal and relentless. Luke's forces, bolstered by loyalists and new recruits seeking favor with the Emperor, clashed with the rebel forces in a series of devastating battles. Luke, believing his actions were for the greater good, could not see how his fear of losing power was driving him deeper into the dark side. The war strained old friendships and alliances. Leia and Han, determined to fight for the ideals they had long cherished, found themselves opposing Luke. Each confrontation deepened Luke's sense of betrayal and isolation, pushing him further from the light and deeper into darkness. Luke's rule grew increasingly authoritarian as he sought to quell dissent and maintain control. His fear of losing power turned into paranoia, leading him to see treachery everywhere. The galaxy, caught between a corrupted sense of order and the desperate fight for freedom, plunged into further turmoil. In his solitude, Luke meditated on his path, trying to justify his actions. He believed he was the only one capable of bringing peace and order, but the dark side's grip on him tightened. His once noble intentions were now tainted by his inability to trust anyone but himself. The war raged on, and while Luke himself was a formidable force, often tipping the scales of battles when he intervened personally, he lacked Palpatine's mind and political acumen. Luke's strength in the Force and combat prowess were undeniable, but his inexperience in governance and strategy became increasingly apparent. He was in over his head. Not long ago, he had been a farm boy, and now he was the emperor of an empire. Luke believed his raw power and determination could brute force the war to a swift conclusion, but this approach proved to be his downfall. The Rebel Alliance, seasoned in guerrilla tactics and bolstered by widespread support for their cause, exploited Luke's strategic shortcomings. They launched coordinated strikes, disrupted supply lines, and swayed key Imperial planets to their side. As the war dragged on, the Empire's resources dwindled, and internal dissent grew. Many officers and soldiers, disillusioned by Luke's heavy-handed rule and lack of coherent strategy, defected to the rebellion. The Empire's once iron grip on the galaxy began to weaken, and the tide of battle shifted in favor of the rebels. Despite his personal prowess in battle, Luke's inability to maintain a cohesive political and military strategy led to significant defeats. Major strongholds fell, and key systems declared independence or joined the rebel cause. The momentum of the war turned irrevocably against the Empire. In a final desperate attempt to crush the rebellion, Luke led a massive assault on the rebel headquarters. The battle was fierce, with Luke cutting down scores of enemies with his lightsaber and force powers. However, the rebels, united and resolute, outmaneuvered and outnumbered his forces. The Empire's fleet was decimated and its ground forces routed. Realizing the inevitable defeat, Luke ordered a retreat. The once mighty Empire was shattered, its remnants scattering across the galaxy. Luke, now a fugitive, fled to the Outer Rim, where he sought refuge on a remote, desolate world. Alone and seething with anger, Luke bathed in his darkness. The weight of his failures and the betrayal he felt from those he once called friends consumed him. His mind was a storm of rage and regret, the dark side's hold on him stronger than ever. He trained relentlessly, honing his powers further, driven by a burning desire for vengeance. In the aftermath of the Empire's defeat, Leia Organa stepped up to lead the efforts to build the New Republic. As a symbol of hope and resilience, she guided the galaxy through the difficult transition from tyranny to democracy. Under her leadership, the New Republic began to restore order, promote justice, and rebuild war-torn worlds. Amidst her political duties, Leia received an unexpected visit from the ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi. He revealed to her the full truth of her family lineage, detailing her connection to Anakin Skywalker and the tragic fall of her brother, Luke. Understanding the depth of the Force within her, Obi-Wan began to train Leia as a Jedi, imparting the wisdom and skills she needed to harness her potential. Leia embraced her training with dedication, balancing her responsibilities as a leader with her newfound path as a Jedi. Her connection to the Force grew stronger, and she became a beacon of light and hope for the galaxy. Obi-Wan's teachings helped her to understand the importance of balance and the peril of the dark side, reinforcing her commitment to redeeming her brother. Determined to save Luke, much like he had attempted to save their father, Leia embarked on a quest to find him.